Welcome back, everybody. If you're just now tuning in. This is Woke Wednesdays. We do this every single Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We do a different topic every single week. So thank you so much for joining us. My name is Hurston Sanchez. I'm the host. I'm a second-year doctoral student here at Florida International University. My family's from Nicaragua. I feel like I should say that now, right? I guess racially, race is interesting for non-Black Hispanics. You ask them what race they are, they're usually confused. Yeah. Unless they're in Miami, most identify as white. But I guess that also goes back to lack of education.
The FIU girls.
Right. Oh man, that's interesting in itself.
They're white, but then they pull that Cuban card when things start getting a little dicey.
Yes. Oh, we can talk about that.
Black men, this is time, bootstraps. This is what we're doing.
Bootstraps. So everybody, real quick, please introduce yourselves real quick. Like last time y'all gave dissertations, that was cool. But yeah, just quick.
My name is Avi.
Where you from?
I'm from St. Kitts and Nevis. I'm an international student.
Cool.
Giancarlo from Kingston, Jamaica.
Eric Gavin from Chicago.
Brandon Apology from New Orleans.
Kai Speaks. I'm from Philly. I'm Black.
So if you're just now joining us, tonight's topic is what does it mean to be a Black man? We've discussed a lot of issues, topics around this. And if you're new, please feel free to ask questions, drop comments, whatever you'd like to know. I think the panel will definitely most. You want to say something?
No, I forgot to say I'm from Philadelphia, Super Bowl, Pennsylvania.
Anyway.
It's nice that y'all won one,
For real, I don't even know why I said that, because I ain't watching a game of NFL.
I'm going to
That's the only game I watch.
Billions of dollars right now?
It's a whole lot.
But they're just celebrating.
Depending on how you look when you're wearing it.
They're overzealous, young kids.
They're just happy, so, they're going to break down the Ritz-Carlton. That Ritz-Carlton saved... It was important to the community, like the CVS in Ferguson. Remember that whole ordeal?
Yeah,
it all depends on how
saying fucking NFL. Okay. But alright, cool. So tonight we were don't apologize for profanity, please. We get so profanity similar, maybe not similar. We give these words power, right? By saying that it is offensive. So we were kind of talking about right now the N-word in Miami and contextually. I don't know if we want to keep that conversation going. I feel like that could conversation go for years.
That and women.
And what?
And women at the same time. We can talk about those things, bro.
Okay. So here's a question. Dating, right? Is there something that? So earlier the question was posed. Can you think of yourself outside of a racial identity? All right, and so when it comes to dating, do you think about this? It's like, this partner also has to be of this racial identity, maybe not. Do y'all think about that? Is that something that goes into?
I don't think about it, but someone outside of my race has never been really attracted to me, so I'm like, I don't even know. That I know of. Someone outside of my race hasn't been attracted to me and acted on that attraction. So then I'm like the least qualified person. I'm like, I don't really care what race you are, but whoever I mostly responded to.
And you don't see color, right?
Oh hell no! What you mean? I just said that for my entire life in a majority African descent country. I was like, oh yeah, I'm a Black man. But in relationships, I could understand how it might affect other people looking at it, but for me, like in choosing a partner or being selected and stuff like that, I don't see it. I think more about what my own personality. So I remember one time, this girl, she said that I'm intimidated, and I was like, "What you mean?" Because I was like, "Did she say like?"
What you mean?
Yeah. What you mean?
Yeah, right.
But then she was like, because you so involved in so much things, so much people, you're always around doing this stuff. It's like, where do I fit in? And I was like, oh damn, I thought she was gonna say because I'm like some black tall guy. But it was like,
you're tall. Stop. That's a privilege. Tall privilege right there. See, look, tall privilege.
How tall was this dude Napoleon who had like 2 countries? It took like what, 3 countries to beat Napoleon?
We're not gonna matter. Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, so that was something like I had to stop and think about. For me, is like I've never drawn the attention for someone outside of my race to act, so it just doesn't factor for me. I'm like, hey, black girls like me. I'm sick with them.
Oh, I am gonna say something. Well, I think about why I get into a relationship, right? If I am going to get into it, and I want somebody who understands me, and I think people who notoriously for all of my entire life who's understood me the most have been black women. I love black women. They're beautiful.
You doing this PC thing or?
I am doing this. But no.
Trying to get his likes up.
I am trying to get my likes up. Don't follow me.
I don't want to make
Underscore. Don't follow me. DM me. I will DM you back.
No.
So like.
No.
So
welcome to Black Love.
But to be real, I have been in different interactions with black people who are not black, with women who are not black, and in those situations, relationships, anything that comes from that, I've been able to understand a little bit more about myself. But what I've started to really fall back on and understand a little bit more so is that somebody can understand me and not be black, but it's a lot more of a gap. It's a lot more of a
learning curve.
A learning curve. Thank you. That's perfectly put.
Yeah.
A learning curve that they have to get to in order to understand it. And maybe they've been in a black environment their whole entire lives, and it's like nothing. And like that's a great thing, because then we'll probably click and we'll be good. And I've been in situations where that happened, but that's not a thing that happens often. And because it's not a thing that happens often, most of the people that I end up interacting with, and most of the women that I end up getting in relationships with, are black, and they understand me, and they understand where I'm coming from, and I want to build with them and do things with them. And I wouldn't lie, I can't lie to you and not say that like the aesthetic of being in love with and eventually being with a black woman for the rest of my life doesn't sound like a beautiful thing. I can't lie to you and say that that's not a thing. If it was something different, that's completely fine. I'm not holding myself against that, but you know, when I imagined it for my life, that's what it was.
So real quick, and I would love for you to answer this too, please. People talking about your accent. So and then someone else asked. I think
Who asked
Kima
about my
asked.
accent?
One of my high school friends. Kima said, so it doesn't even cross your mind at all, Zabi dating someone outside of your race. And we can come back. People asking what country you're from. The one all the way from the left. Zabi, you out here? Okay. People talking about Saint Kitts. Okay. Hold on, there's a lot going on. Someone said, "Hey, boo." I don't know, talking to Eric or Zavi.
Oh no.
Keelan said, "There's one like for you, Eric." She's disrespectful a little bit. Some of the women are saying date a person of color. And so the comments keep on going. We can read those. But I would love for one of y'all to go, and we can get back to.
I don't have an accent.
So like dating outside of your race.
Or when it comes to dating, do you think about your racial identity and your partners, potential partners?
I think back to what Eric said about just identifying, like involving yourself with people who understand you the most is definitely important. For me, like in high school, like I've like talked and dated, whatever you want to call it at the time in high school. Like I talked to like white girls with like, and they were like in black environments, like from the hood, just like I was from. And it's like, but for me, it was like, it was too extreme. Like for me, I was like, wow, you're too hood. Like, and it's like, yeah, like, I'm like,
Is she trying too hard? Or?
It's not that she was trying too hard, but I'm like, wow, you're too hood, and then I just wasn't attracted to like that level of like, like urban, like I'm like,
Oh no!
I'm like, what is going on?
Problematic woman.
Like, yo, like, all right, so like, let me get back to where I
So yeah, urban girls.
No, it's not that I don't like urban girls. It's like, for me,
What
it was
is
like,
urban?
it was like a ruse. I felt like it was a ruse. I'm like,
Okay, you feel like she was trying too hard?
yeah, I'm like, either I felt like she was trying too hard because she felt as though that's how I talk, and it's like, so I was like automatically like,
Q, you gotta get the camera. There you
Oh,
go.
I'm not in the
There you
camera.
go.
I got a thing with like staying in the camera.
You do. It's
So
all right.
like,
Oh, didn't he see your face?
I felt like it was a ruse, so I was like, okay, so now I'm not attracted to that. And then it's like later, as I started to go on with like my experience of being like black, as I got older, then I was like, you know what, black women who I identify with the most, you know, they don't seem to try as hard to be themselves. You know, it's like they understand me more, and I don't have to like explain what I'm going through in life to as hard for them to just. I could just say one word and they automatically explain it.
Fantasy in your head.
Somebody set that up.
No,
Somebody
it's
set
part
that
of
up.
I always do plan out my day at 10 o'clock.
Hey, look.
So that's my.
But you know, back to
The
because I got some comments.
black women are clapping back
Yeah.
at what you talking about.
They could clap back.
Can
I love
share
that.
my before he get
You always clap back.
Let me show you in the camera.
But I got a comment that can you be pro-black and date outside your race? I feel as though you can be pro-black and date outside your race because like we are all entitled to our preference, but it's just also being pro-black just means you love yourself and you understand where you come from. So it's like you can do that by also dating outside your race. But that's not what this is about. This is just me commenting on the fact that, you know, white women.
Respect is perfect.
Yeah.
Respect is
But you know,
The award winner for most problematic.
That's what I was going to say this just because I hear it often from like men and women, and I cringe. But I have no issues with you dating outside of your race. There's not an issue. I think what becomes a problem is when you attribute your reasoning for dating outside of your race for something that has been stereotypically stigmatic and problematic for that race. So I don't want to date black men because of this, this, and this. These negative stereotypes. So now you're now
Blocked off.
you're now blocking off, but you're also affirming this negative connotation that black men have that we're trying to break from. As far as why you don't want to date with us because you feel like all black men do this when Tom and Bob probably do the same thing to y'all anyway. There's no difference.
Tom and Bob.
But I'm saying,
Bob, y'all here.
yeah, but I'm saying, and black men, right? But again, and black men say the same thing too about women, and I hear it in conversations like I'd rather go white because they're more submissive. X, Y, and Z. I don't want to deal with the black women, the strong black women or the angry black women being so forth.
Loud
Right, they're loud, and I'm like, dog, that's to me, it's a sign of weakness for real. If you feel like you have to, you feel like you're using a cheat code to win in life. Like you know what I'm saying? Like you have to go ahead. No, but I do feel like it's a sign of weakness.
Back stuff.
Even so,
Contra.
yeah.
But I do feel like it's a sign of weakness. Just because I feel like I said, I support the idea of just love is love and loving whoever based on whoever supports you and who you connect with. But once you start attributing to something that we've already been dealing with as far as oppressive language, that is where I have a problem with. And I just want to share that.
The reasoning for it, I definitely agree with you. Because I wholeheartedly believe in the quote, love doesn't ask why. There is no rules. There's no actual logic for it. So even, no matter what the situation is, I'm like, you can't control it. Whoever you love, and sometimes people who love each other, it doesn't even have to be the best situation. It could be toxic as hell, but I don't have this purely positive look on love. I think love is just this emotion that people could have for each other, and it doesn't abide by any rules. So that's why when it comes to color, once is not basically, oh, this is what black women do, or this is what Hispanic women do. Once it's not that, once you genuinely loved that individual, I could be like, alright.
Can I make a distinction?
Brandon,
Oh,
No, I'm good. You go ahead.
Brandon's like, ooh, all y'all think it's crazy.
Look,
Chilling.
he gonna come on with some nice
I
good
don't want to like. I don't need no like.
I know. I just want to look. So I just know I wanted to ask a question because do you make a distinction between love and being in a relationship? Like if you love someone and can you carry on a relationship with somebody? Because I think you can love anybody, but then when I think about being in a relationship, have you ever tried to talk to somebody about something that's so common to you and they just don't get it?
They
don't get it. Like, have you ever talked to a woman about the miseducation of Lauryn Hill? She's just like, what is that? I'm like,
But
you
why
gotta
go?
go. I don't know.
But why not meet them halfway or at least educate them on that? I think like why
Now
stop?
that's something
So-
that you can do too. Now some of it is
Because
more or
you
less
could be
you
on the
have
other
to-
side of that.
But
too.
do you want to educate somebody on something
But
like
they,
that?
they
Like,
can
I
have
can
the same
educate-
thing as well.
Same
Right?
thing.
So like they
Right.
could have whatever their thing is, and you cannot comprehend why this is such an issue to them.
Yeah.
Right? Which happens a lot. That's
Right.
because I'm digging myself. But you know, so it's like you can't understand it, but it's about education. Like just sit there and understand. Like this is important to you for this reason, and this is what I don't understand. Vice versa for you, if that's so important to you, then like look, let's go to this concert.
Yeah.
And let me put you through this. Let me listen to this.
And making sure you're not mansplaining.
Real quick,
Yeah, and also it could be more of
And
a
that's
growing
what-
thing, right?
Right.
but real
Could
quick,
be.
the way we're talking about
Could
this,
be, right.
the way we're talking about this topic presupposes a type of relationship, right? So this kind of ignores just talking to somebody, hooking up with somebody, right? We're kind of alluding to that like a forever partner or long term partner, right? Within this conversation,
Yeah.
because outside of that, sometimes you might not care if she can relate to you or not, like or whatever partner it is, like because I think that's also right.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
My fault. It's my fault. Wholesome. Y'all wholesome. My fault.
Hey.
I meant that in not a sarcastic way.
Look, all the men up here right now.
I'm fine.
Someone asked who on the panel
We
is
good.
single. So Woke Wednesdays isn't about that.
I mean, it could be.
He done gave y'all his name now.
It could be. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie about where I'm at. Like, I'm single as hell. Like, I ain't doing what? Why I gotta lie?
Attack the rim.
Why I gotta lie?
He's a straight slasher.
Look, I don't have look, hey, every shot that you can take. No, but for real though.
Imagine a story like at the wedding, like how'd y'all meet?
Yo, that would be crazy.
My friend Hurston, right?
He put me on this panel. I know,
Man.
go ahead.
I was talking about black man, and then I found the
People
perfect
die.
black
I'm
woman.
fooling.
So, man, I had okay. There's a lot of questions. So this is interesting the way we kind of this, but I also think that we're looking at this in a very mature way, right? Because I've been, everyone, I'm sure, been part of conversations where this is the opposite, right? And sometimes we do end up exoticizing a type of person as well, right? And sometimes it's like, you know what, I do want. We normalize people like through in various ways, right? This woman is a loud woman, and it happens to be attached to a blackness. The Latina woman is this type of woman because of this. So we end up normalizing and we end up thinking about them. Sometimes we end up exoticizing that.
Right.
You know something I
Go
want to
ahead.
touch on specifically is an issue that I have with a bunch of Hotep niggas is this whole thing about
Wait, that's a loaded
Real
term.
quick, Hotep.
What is
You might
a
define
Hotep?
that real
Yeah,
quick.
I was about to say,
Just
look,
define the
what
Hotep.
is a Hotep?
Oh,
Not to mention
specifically
you
for
word
me.
nigga.
Hotep niggas are these self-proclaimed leaders in their black community, these sort of all-knowing gentlemen.
Umar Johnson's probably one of the best
Examples. Best
Yeah.
examples that you
But-
can use.
of Hotep.
They are speaking these things that one aren't able to kind of, they're not for the betterment of all
They don't speak for
black
the community.
people. They're not speaking for all, not even all, like a good portion of the diaspora. And also, they're saying one thing while doing the other. So they'll be, they come up to girls and be like, hey, my black empress, my queen, my sister. And then all of a sudden you hear the story about, oh, he invited her for poetry at his place, and this, then that happened.
Poetry and shit.
And all of a sudden it's like,
Poetry and chill.
yeah. And then it's like,
That's deep.
and this the person y'all put your faith in? So, specifically to them, they've led this wave of when you're getting like your Woman Crush Wednesdays and your chocolate this and your black woman, I don't know, they ain't got no days with B, but when you have these expressions, these posts, these different platforms, and then you see who they're posting, they're talking about, oh yeah, you gotta love all your women and stuff, and then it's just some girls that a photographer told them, yo, put your titty in a ginger ale. It just looks so awkward. It's like all these curves, it's like a woman covered in chocolate.
What?
No.
Wait, that was specific.
Time out. those things. I was like, what is this doing for black women? Like what? Because you took a black girl and you covered her in chocolate.
I've never known ginger ale saying.
Wait, where are you getting these stories from? These are really specific.
What? Like mine is
really
different to
specific.
y'all.
Yes.
I'm not getting this information.
John said cut.
John is one of them photographers.
He was saying quote of the night.
Oh my god.
But, yeah,
He's
so,
speaking Spanish, can?
but that's the thing. It's how they're doing this whole thing with like, you want to celebrate black women, but you're only celebrating a specific kind of black woman in a specific sexual manner.
So you're over-sexualizing black women in a particular way.
Yeah.
In a misogynistic way.
Absolutely.
Ultimately, yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. What are we actually talking about? 'Cause I just want to say something.
Oh, no, I was just jumping around with ginger ale.
Mine's a ginger ale.
Mario said Woke Wednesdays does not condone dipping your breast in ginger ale. Appreciate the disclaimer. Everybody's just. But Hotep, because this is like maybe I don't know if it's a recent. I don't think it is, but in the way we think about a Hotep person, I think that
It's being identified.
He's being
now.
identified in that way.
Yeah.
All right. And this is everywhere. Umar Johnson has raised hundreds of thousands of dollars
With no school.
with no school, right? And he's at the. Go ahead.
Let me bring up an interesting point about Umar Johnson because, like, he is a very
Real quick, who is Umar Johnson? I don't know if everyone knows who
So
Umar Johnson is.
I'm gonna go real specific in who Umar Johnson is
Oh,
because,
okay.
like, it's
I know
ironic. I know
Is he
he's
from
like
Philly?
person. He is not from Philly, but he taught at my middle school. He was my dean of students, and he was really like very persuasive and very empowering towards the black
does
men
have that.
in the school. Like,
His
I got
red
in trouble by, like, you know, most of the teachers are white women, so it's like black boys always stand out as the troublemakers in the classroom because we're energetic. We don't know how to just sit still for 8 hours in a school day to learn whatever you're trying to teach us. So as though I would get into trouble and I would go get sent to Mr. Johnson's office, and, you know, he will always enlighten us, encourage us to, you know, just be yourself. We know that there's a certain way, we know that things go a certain way, but, you know, you have a lot of energy. Find a way to channel your energy. Encourage us to get into sports and things like that. And then so, like, I really grew up looking up to Umar Johnson. And then when I got into high school, still looking up to him, and I got into college, and I started watching some of his like some of his videos on YouTube, and then, you know, a lot of things that he said were like, you know, this is good and all, but then
That's
you
how
also
you know
hear,
you're young, when you're in high school watching YouTube.
yeah, and then it's like, then you would hear a lot of other things, and he was like, okay, well, a lot of things that he say about women, I don't really share the same point of view on, and then, like, some other things come off a little bit iffy, but I still try to listen to hear his point of view. And then he came to my school, Chain University, to speak, and he made a lot of strong points, but he was also talking about this school. So then that's why I started to pay more attention to this school that he was trying to start. And then, like, lo and behold, a lot of people started going on making their own YouTube videos about this charter school scam that he started and how he raised all this money. And then a guy challenged him.
Yeah.
He said, I bet you ever see the guy who challenged him $50,000?
Yeah, I saw the video.
And he was like, I'll bet you $50,000 if you could provide me with, like, the financials and the plan that you have implemented to start this charter school. And he never responded to that. And I was just like, dang, like, this is like, if it was me.
If it was serious.
If it
and
was
that's
me.
$60,000.
If it was me, and I'm raising money for a school, and somebody just offered $50,000 to provide them with the information that you need to have to start a charter school, like, if it was me, I would not even question it to providing that man. Exactly. Send right to a PDF. You can't change it. You can't change it. It's all here. You know, give me that 50 racks. But, you know, he didn't even respond, and it's still a question as to if the school's even getting started. So, like, you know, for me, he's a perfect example of Hotep, because I feel as though Hotep now is identified as someone who gives you this false precept of, I'm black and proud, and I'm here for
Black
the
and
betterment.
proud,
Yeah, I'm here for the betterment of my community, but you're not really doing anything. In terms of,
Yeah.
Kima saying Hotep is fake woke, deeply rooted.
Yeah.
Parentheses, the plant that you buy from Walmart versus the old ass tree in the forest.
Man, what you got to from Walmart?
A forest
man?
intellectual. My thoughts come in poetry, and I speak in audiobook form. Okay.
Oh, and spoken word. Hotep's like spoken word.
But Umar Johnson sounds good.
Sounds.
But then
The words that he used.
But there's many
You have
things
to
that
set-
sound
that's the
good.
thing.
But it's
You have
when
to
you
separate-
really pay attention to it, right?
Yes.
Right.
But at a surface, but let's also think about who his audience is, right? I think this panel are people who think very critically about things, right? You don't just accept things. Unfortunately, and this also comes, I think, with the type of training, right? To be able to think this way. A lot of folks might not have that, and what he says might sound good to
Are
them.
the folks
Right.
who are donating these sums of money not have that particular type of training?
There might be after.
Because,
There might
and
have
I
to
want to say because I'm not saying
No,
it's
go.
not
Please,
us,
please,
but what I'm
please,
saying
please,
is that
please, yeah.
you have to speak to many people to start a school. Like a school, I'm thinking about starting a school. I know the budget and all of that stuff. It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Everybody, I'm coming at everybody for it.
Yeah.
So there's going to be people who can think a certain way and who can't. But I mean, I'm guessing my larger checks are going to come from people who, it's not about color, it's about your thought process. You have to be successful or have some type of asset to be able to provide me with what we need. So you have to have, at some point, have thought a certain way. Like, you when you give a certain amount of money, you do some research, or somebody on your team does research. It's very rare that you give out 100,000 or 50,000 or even 20,000 with just like, we with nothing. Like, I just got it like that. So I mean, that's an interesting point.
I think that comes into what G said, the leadership.
What is that?
Because when take away what people's message from how they deliver it. Because, funnily enough, this comedian Gerard Carmichael, he was speaking about it, and he was saying, like, look at MLK and how he delivered this thing, and how not even just his message, his delivery, and how he used shame on the Southerners. That didn't work when he went up north. Now look at Hitler. How Hitler's message was this terrible thing, but how did he sell a country on this message? When you start going through leadership, there's a book, The Art of Persuasion, I think. It is not just looking at the message, but how are you delivering this? So I guess in Yuma Johnson's case, he's looking at the platform, going on certain shows, using YouTube, using the internet, where no matter what you're doing, you can find somebody out there who shares that thought. And then of those people who share that thought, finding the people with that 10,000 who ain't going to ask the right questions.
And you also have testimonials, like you were saying, so he could probably find more kids from the school who looked up to him. So now I have a testimonial, now I have these kids around me. So they're saying this, I have kids around me. You can't really say no to that. Like, if you say no to kids, it's like, well, what kind of person? You know what I mean? So.
But I fear, and I kind of want to bring it to, like, what we, like, talked about at the very beginning, as far as us as black men, and how his influence can affect other black men that are, and I'm saying this to be rude, but impressionable to his ideology, his thinking. And I worry about that because, yes, he might say some very galvanizing, very, like, empowering things about what we need to do as black men as far as our development. However, I find it rooted in a little bit of contradiction in terms of how we approach women, for example. All right. So when we look at toxic masculinity and see how it's masked, or at least how Umar masks it with these fancy words and words of encouragement, but at the same time we still approach and interact with women in a particular way, which is so detrimental to our well-being, because now we're continuing to perpetuate the cycle of why, you know, black women, like again, like I said before, it should be these negative stereotypes to us, and why we in some respects fulfill these stereotypes. And that to me, I think that we have to start working on changing that understanding, that language in itself, that Umar is not the voice of the intellectual black male, or the one that is at least known for what he had, for his language, his message.
And that's super interesting because I've been having a lot of conversations with people about what particularly is like black leadership now. And if we say Umar's not, then we say, then the next question is like, then who is, right? So, and I look around like, well, I have academics that I can look to say that they're insightful and they're knowledgeable about X thing. And one of the people that really inspired me initially, and we were talking about him earlier, was Cornell West and everything. But then he go and do that, like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, and we have to realize they're people, you know, like,
and therefore you should never sell yourself short as an individual, yourself as being someone that could be potentially a leader, or that already is a leader in your own right.
Right.
And that's like they tell us, man, you know what, MLK ain't coming back. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying to be rude, and but these leaders and these people that we look up to and that we kind of like, we hold on to as far as who we are and so forth and our identity, we're not them.
Mm-hmm.
What they did for us and so forth has been set in stone, but now we have to continue the legacy, or at least create our own legacy of leadership and continue that path. And I'm not saying that you're not. When you were talking about it, it just said to myself, like, yo, the language that we need to start saying for ourselves, or how we need to start talking to ourselves or talking about ourselves, is of leadership. Like, I'm going to be there for this community because this other person won't be.
So let me give you a practical spin to that. Like, I will, when I think about myself, I'm like, I'm going to be there one day. Like, I'm going to be in a position to like lead people and let them know that like, this is how we should do it. This is how we plan our community. This is the infrastructure that we need to build in order to build up something that's going to be lasting. How do you be presumptive about that? So like, how do you get to a point where you can say like, I'm going to be this thing, and everybody doesn't do that thing where they're like, why is it you? Like, you're not ready.
Yeah.
And you're not the person that we think it should be at this point. Like,
So
you know how they put...
so is it you saying that that's what they're going to say to you, or is that what's happening?
So it's two things. It's me continuing to build myself up in a way that is going to be that person. So knowledge-wise, passion-wise, and emotionally intelligent about how I'm corresponding with my people. And people that need me in order to be there for them to build up this community that we're talking about. And then it's also how they perceive me as I'm continuing to grow. Because now we're a lot more susceptible. Like, I don't know if Martin would have been Martin now. Like, and obviously he wouldn't. To be honest, there's too much stuff happening in the streets. Like, to kind of go through a lot of the things that he had to go through, to be completely honest.
Well,
and I don't know if that's necessarily the same thing.
Nah, so here's the part. Two things that kind of touched me. I don't know if this is you or this is happening.
No, just shoot, good.
So when you talked about like being ready and stuff like that, right? God bless you. What I fear is that a lot of times we as people, when we have this plan and intent for something, we say that we're going to get ready. We keep saying we're going to get ready. Years from now, it's like, you know what? I'm going to get ready. I'm going to get ready. I'm going to get ready. When ready never comes, right?
Yeah.
And why can't we just do the minor things, the small things, to build us to where we already are? So for me, especially as a black man, and like I said, trying to bring it back to us being black and leadership and love and so forth. Why can't the first sign of leadership for me to be is to challenge myself, but also to get out of my comfort zone and say to the next black person, I love you, or the next black man that I love you, or that I see something in you or I believe in you, right? While you're still working on yourself, yeah, granted, whatever, but in the same time, being proactive in just changing or doing something different, changing how you approach another person. Because identifying small steps and simply building on someone else. Because
being intentional.
Yeah. But real quick, we're and yes, to everything that everybody's saying, but Martin was a leader amongst leaders.
Yeah.
He could not be Martin without his
wife
and without his group, right? You read his stuff and his biographies and everything. He had such a powerful, just group of people with him.
Yeah.
Brilliant people.
And also just as an individual, what he believed in.
If you look at Martin, like took charge around the age of like 26, because number one, we'll never stop working on ourselves. That's something that's a lifelong thing, right? He's about 26, 27, and what we read is that he was actually very timid and very shy of taking this leadership position. Yeah. But it was people who believed in him. Mm-hmm. So you cannot have a Martin without people next to him, without people behind him.
Support, connecting and supporting.
But it's this community of people, right? So sometimes I think we think of ourselves as, am I a leader? That already individualizes. Yeah. As opposed to, can we be leaders together?
Exactly.
Leadership, right? So that's a whole different conversation.
You're the people who, or you're saying, I don't know if this has actually happened or if that was an example, but if that's the people around you, then you got to find people who believe. Like, there are people who will pour into you, and when they pour into you, you know it, right? Like, when I used to work for other people, when I was on a board, and one of our board members was like, you need to be an entrepreneur. You can't work for other people. Like, you can do all the stuff that you want to do. You can do it. Now, okay, so that person was around me, and then other people around me, my mother and my father. So there's people around. There's always going to be those other people too. Now, some of them you have to be able to decide whether this person actually cares for me. Like when I started my business, there was a woman. She genuinely cared for me, so she was like, "I don't think you should start this training business because everybody's doing it."
Mm-hmm.
Now, she wasn't doing it because she was a competitive. I was training her son. She just cared. She was concerned, like, if I failed. There's also other people like, oh, they don't want to see you succeed. You have to be able to. You want to be able to. Manage both of those. But then also, there's got to be more people around. Like Martin, those were amazing people. Like when we read and when we really understand, like those people are amazing people around. So that's your.
So like while we're still on the civil rights, I want you guys' opinion on this because this is something I've just been feeling for a minute. Like the civil rights movement as a movement has done a lot of positive things for the black community, us as individuals, our parents and everything like that, but I feel as though civil rights being passed as civil rights, I feel as though that only had left us to be more stagnant because after civil rights got passed, we as people became comfortable with what's going on. So like I want you all y'all opinion on that.
I think the game changed on that.
The game definitely changed after civil rights was passed, but I feel though that game has changed to where it was.
I think it was hidden at the time.
Stagnation.
Anything
Because
was hidden at the time,
Yeah.
and then things came out. So then you had to operate a certain way, and then now I guess with our current climate, you really don't have to operate a certain way. You can be however you want to be and say what you want and not do this, and that just be cool because there's no punch in the face.
Well,
I was just thinking that. The consistent.
That's
no
no
consequence.
consistency. Yeah.
Literally,
Is there consistency now in the black
Always.
community?
There isn't.
So I think that's what I'm trying to get from the what you're saying. Just correct me if I'm wrong. So what the civil rights movement provided us was consistency, was a state of resistance that we have, that we as blacks have fought for a very long period for a long period of time in a manner that was always challenging. Like they always knew that what we were doing, where we were at, and it was always in the forefront. And I'm just asking, are you saying that that's not something that we do on a consistent level now, or consistent basis now as blacks?
I think there's a hotep part of it.
Okay.
Right? Because let's use for example, when we boycott things, it's not when there was it was right. It's not all of us. There's a couple of us sometimes when it's convenient, and then then there's nothing really happens after. You realize that? Like there were changes made
after all of
after Selma. There was a change made. How many boycotts? How many times have we done something where you just wake up the next morning, you're still hearing the same problem, you're still seeing the same.
I think
I don't know if that's a difference.
There's a difference in the time. When I say the game changed, because when you look at Selma and stuff like this, you think about Selma. What really affected the larger audience when you think about it is when they physically saw these people getting beaten down into the ground.
Social media
for
and that
walking.
television played a huge role.
But no, with social media, you can see that every single day. You are now desensitized to this. So seeing a black man shot by a police officer, in all honesty, right now, you might see something like, damn, that's a shame. But then you still keep scrolling because you know more of that is going to happen. Why should I care about that one?
So real quick though,
back then you only had that feed from the TV. The television was the only way you could physically see. They are literally killing these people who might not have the same color, but are human in a sense. They are killing them for walking.
Part of me feels like we're romanticizing a little bit.
That's another thing too.
The black community, which I think that should also be analyzed from the civil rights movement. Mark Lamont Hill came to FIU, I think, 2 or 3 years ago or something, and he gave a speech and he said, I don't know how accurate these statistics are, but he said, in the civil rights movement, only 14 to 16% of black people actually participated during this movement.
Yeah. But then
So
there's
that-
also the roles. I don't think
the
everybody's
roles-
supposed to be on the street.
Whatever it is.
Right.
That's a very small number.
Yeah.
Right.
So sometimes I do think we romanticize certain things and we assume that we need all these people to make a difference.
Well, I think it was changed too, right? Like,
Yeah.
when they did something, there was a change. It might have taken long, but there was some type of change after.
Yes.
Like right now, for example, Colin Kaepernick. There is nothing that came from that. It turned into
They started having a conversation without him.
They started having a conversation
But
without
that's
him,
the thing too.
but we're
People don't
still.
fully understand what is going on
And
in
that's
the different
another thing.
systems.
It's
'Cause
not
even
just-
with the Kaepernick, there's a lot. I was on the show before.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on. So like
Right.
what you're saying,
Yeah.
do people understand what is going on?
I-
As opposed to the civil rights, when you had clearly defined enemies. Like when you say right now, what are the problems for black men? Can we identify them and then identify a path to solve these
You know
problems?
what?
Go ahead, Eric.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So I don't even think you have to clearly define the problem because I don't even think they did that well then. I think they clearly defined what they had to do.
Mm.
Like,
Right.
in order to make an impact in Selma, we have to stop using the bus.
Yeah.
That was it. And if you look and if you read real hard,
Mhm.
like they were struggling just to do that one thing.
Yeah.
And eventually it just ended up in a way where it worked itself out. Now if we try to say on the national scale, what do we have to do? Like, I would say that we have to be a little bit more strategic in trying to approach some of these things with so like it's not just like everybody kneels. It's like everybody kneels, then we do a boycott on these days and on these type of products, and then we do this thing, and we all do it every single day on Friday. Like it has
If
to
it's
be,
a no, yeah.
it had to be really strategic in how
But
you
real
approach
quick-
it in order to make an impact in the same manner.
I completely agree with you.
Right.
There was an
I was
intentionality
going to
behind
ask that
this
question, I think
this
you want to.
protest, right? Behind this way of saying no. There was legit policy, right? On a
Mhm.
bus, you have to sit here. We're gonna denounce this.
Yeah.
Boom, right. But the other thing, this black community thing, kind of it bothers me. The perfect example is Colin Kaepernick, phenomenal. But I have another critique about these people just saying I'm with Cap. Like what the fuck does that even mean, right? Like, but number two, we should critique this idea of community and whatever Hispanic community, whatever. I don't care what it is, because this was extremely important when we saw the NFL. Colin was the only one kneeling. It took Donald Trump to say sons of bitches for everybody else to kneel.
Yes.
And that was to me one of the most evident things that to me this idea of community exists in the abstract, but in the practical, in the physical, not really. Especially when there's millions of dollars.
Because with the Kaepernick thing, it was not an issue for anyone until a reporter asked him. Colin Kaepernick, as I said, he kneeled the first pregame, he kneeled the second one, and he was sitting in the background, I think, the third time. And that's when the reporter was like, no, I gotta ask this dude why he doing this thing. And when he asked him and he said, oh, that is just my form of protest against these specific things. The treatment of black people in America, the police brutality that is consistently happening, and the way that they systematically stunt economic development for the black community. Those are his things that he said he's protesting against. When people started getting mad, he had a few teammates who said, look, y'all not gonna come from a boy like that. We kneeling together. So now it's only three, you had one or two guys on other teams. When Trump made that, now is everybody looking around like, he can't, I ain't no son of no bitch. He talking about my mama. So now it comes.
But he was talking about I think that movement was pushed more by not even the players. I do think the players were the owners because now they got their pockets
The
challenged.
second tweet was, why then if they were in my league, I would kick them out. The owners don't have any control, and now the owners are like, hey, yo,
Chill.
Yeah.
chill.
Yeah,
You
play-
can't be
yeah,
talking
play
about
them.
all thing like
Yeah.
that. But even with that whole thing, like they had they ended up giving money in negotiations to the NAACP Legal Defense Fund and the college thing for it, and it's like, is that going to trickle down to everybody?
Do you like the
Yeah, I think they gave up.
They gave
like
two.
8 foundations.
Do y'all like the NAACP?
Oh, that's a whole other crap.
That-
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Is
That's the whole other episode.
I can't speak to it because what?
Kicked off?
I am.
I need to understand.
Everybody can say,
Alright, so look. It's 10:48. It's only an hour. There's been literally a million comments. I'm so sorry. I usually read most of the comments, but y'all just been blowing it up. And so thank you so much for that. And y'all having y'all's own conversation too. So I ain't trying to be rude. But so we have like 10 minutes left. Tonight, this conversation.
Closing statements.
We need to talk. This is like there's a part 2, part 3. There's a lifetime parts to it, right? So first of all, thank y'all for just coming and being. I think this also takes a type of vulnerability, right? To even talk about this and being so open about it and having people watch and tune in. But the topic tonight, the question was, what does it even mean to be a black man? All right. Clearly, we've looked at this from various perspectives in different ways. So as we close, if you could give some parting words, and I don't know, I don't even know how to say this. Like
Closing statements.
Like what would you tell the people? There's a lot was discussed tonight.
Yeah.
So if you could have some parting words around this topic, around this idea, and I even hate abstracting it that way because it's about your humanity, right? In essence. So yeah, it's just some parting words. Whoever would like to go first.
I'll just keep mine short. I would say what it means to be a black man is to possess the responsibility to, within your heart of hearts, truly want to uplift your communities and enlighten folks out of ignorance. And I'll just keep it at that.
I'm supposed to follow that. No, that was really good. That's how you kind of fade out after that. I mean, like I said before, to whom much is given, much is required. I think we have to understand our responsibilities. I think we also have to do a much better job of having conversation with women and understand the black women's struggle. I don't think there's a conversation around that at all. And I think we have to realize that if we want to change our environments, that we have to be that change. You want something better in your community, you make it happen, and you change that community. So I just think that we have a lot of responsibility, but we are equipped to handle that responsibility and then exceed the expectations that we have for us.
I always there's this thing about like this is a beautiful struggle. I don't like the word struggle because I don't like thinking about black men or women as being defined by like our struggle as we have been like throughout our entire history. So I just want to say it's beautiful. It's beautiful being in this state to where we can grow and kind of decide for ourselves what we want to be and what we want to do. And again, as we all been saying this entire time, it's our responsibility to give that opportunity to other people in order and to people that ourselves that do not have that ability to do that themselves. Because everybody is not as blessed as personally for me as I am in order to pursue things that they really truly believe in and really want to do and really want to show the world to. And I want to help as many people as possible get to that point with the gifts that I specifically have. So
I would say it's our responsibility to man, I want to touch on this for a minute, but what really resonates right now is dismantling misogyny and patriarchy. Like, it is our responsibility. I mean, black women had this burden of doing so much work, and I feel like it's really our job, and we owe it to ourselves as men to do that, to do our part. And that goes by, talking to other men about how they approach and how they interact and talk about women. Like, not being afraid to tell somebody, like, yo, that's rude, or yo, like, watch your mouth. Like, that's not how you talk about women, that's how you interact with them. And as a sense of being a man, same thing, being vulnerable. We touched on that at the very beginning. Being comfortable being an emotional being. Like, you know what I'm saying? Not feeling that masculinity is one way or is in this box, that you being a man encompasses all of emotions. And I think when we get to a point where we can trust ourselves and be comfortable with ourselves, we'll be able to grow a lot more as people. You know what I'm saying? I know we touch on like supporting each other, which that in itself is obviously needed. But I think one of the focuses that this resonates with me a lot is how we can do a better part of being better men and better men for women. Just because, unfortunately, we as black men we already got certain strikes on us to begin with, and us as men as a whole, we can be walking triggers for women. You know what
I think for me, a friend told me that advice is a selfish concept. Like, the process of giving advice is self-serving in a sense. So what I want to say is, to black men, women, and everybody, be yourself, but specifically to the African diaspora, just understand that there has been a system that is built for the destruction of black bodies. Your mere existence is almost defying this system. Just being is almost a fight against the system. And I want you to be yourself while doing this, and whether you're exceptional or not, finding that comfort within yourself to actively do these things.
Yeah.
Close it off, Russell.
I don't know if I can. I mean, I think it's interesting being a non-black Hispanic person in Miami. This is like a very weird experience coming from North Carolina to here. And I think not being black, not being white puts you in certain spaces to hear certain things, which I think is important. And what I see is it's interesting. People will be like, "Oh, Hurston, you think you're black?" I mean, it's really interesting how that logic in the first place, that because I care about humanity, I have to be something else, or I just can't be this, whatever that means. And it's interesting. You cannot have a Hispanic serving institution without an HBCU, right? You can't have it. When we look at the civil rights movement, the term up there was colored, right?
Yeah.
That encompasses a lot of people outside of blackness.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it was
Black
Martin
people in society.
was brilliant in this. He was protesting the Vietnam War, right? Muhammad Ali, right? Because they understood this was bigger than just blackness. That this was about non-whites. Martin was also advocating for poor whites, right? One of my favorite labor laws.
Yeah.
One of my favorite letters was Cesar Chavez and Martin Luther King writing to each other. There was this beautiful telegram that was sent, and it was in this article. It was quoted as, "It could have been the strongest black-brown alliance ever had Martin not been murdered." Right. So I do think about that a lot. I do think about black women activists, scholars, Audre Lorde, Toni Morrison, all these people. And it is through their liberation that maybe we can find our liberation, and we can also, but we need to be a part of that, like Giancarlo said, you said. So I think these intersectional approaches to freedom, equality, and liberty is extremely important. So with that being said, I just want to thank y'all for being here, for being vulnerable, for being open. Like I didn't know you till tonight. But this is beautiful, right? The ability to come together. And I really hope, I think Eric was talking about this earlier, how we oftentimes get together once, dab each other up, and I'm a hot later. Catch me on the gram. So it's like, I really hope that, we can continue this and keep this going. So yeah, and thank you everyone for tuning in. People have been dropping crazy comments.
I'm gonna have to rewatch them just to see the comments.
Like comments are crazy. Like y'all getting so much love. People are. Kalan said this was actually a good panel. Like, damn, you're disrespectful. And then Babe's Ward been talking about your shirt look like sprinkles. But thank y'all so much for tuning in tonight. And yeah, thank y'all for being here. So,
Oh man, yeah, I'm definitely gonna